My wife posted her affair while I was in emergency surgery, so I let her boss watch her career end. The heart monitor was the only thing keeping rhythm with my thoughts when I finally drifted into consciousness at 3 a.m. on a Friday. Less than 4 hours earlier, I had been wheeled into emergency surgery because my appendix had essentially decided to go nuclear. I was 38, lying in a sterile hospital bed with tubes snaking out of me, and the last thing I remembered was Tara's face as she told me she couldn't stay. Shed said she had a critical deadline at her accounting firm, Pinnacle, and that the Q2 reports were a make-or-break moment for her promotion. Shed kissed my forehead, looked me in the eyes, and promised to be there the second the clock hit midnight. I believed her. I was groggy, clutching my phone with trembling fingers, expecting a "hope you're okay" text. Instead, I saw a notification that changed the molecular structure of my life. Tara had tagged me in a post. It was a photo of her and Derek, her 31-year-old work husband, clinking crystal champagne glasses on a moonlit balcony. The caption read, "Finally free. No more chains, no more deadweight. Living my best life with someone who actually gets me." She had tagged me while I was literally being cut open on an operating table. There were already dozens of likes and comments from her coworkers. One person wrote, "Finally doing it. You deserve an upgrade, queen." Another said, "Upgrade season is officially here." I stared at the screen, the blue light searing into my retinas, as the heart monitor started a frantic, high-pitched beeping. A nurse rushed in, asking if I was in pain. I looked at her and said, "Yeah, just processing that my marriage ended via Instagram while I was under anesthesia." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just typed one word in the comments. "Congratulations." Then I started looking closer. Eve always been a bit of a data nerd. The photo metadata, which she hadn't bothered to strip, showed it was taken at 9:47 p.m. That was 13 minutes before her dead or alive deadline. They weren't crunching numbers, they were drinking. The rooftop in the background was unmistakable. It was the executive terrace of the Pinnacle building, a place reserved strictly for client entertainment and senior partners. Derek was wearing a company-branded polo, and there was a bottle of Macallan 25 on the table, a bottle that costs more than my monthly mortgage. I knew for a fact that bottle lived in the partner's private lounge. I took screenshots of everything. The post, the timestamp, the comments, and the background details. I knew Tara's boss, Mr. Fitzgerald, was an old-school guy who didn't touch social media, but his wife, Dottie, was a local socialite who followed everyone at the firm. Shed even commented heart emojis on Tara's birthday posts before. I tagged Dottie in the comments. "Beautiful view from your husband's building." I didn't know the Q2 deadline included 25-year-old Scotch service on the executive terrace while I was in emergency surgery. Hope the report was worth it. Then, I turned off my phone and let the morphine take me back under. I woke up at 7 a.m. to a phone that was vibrating so hard it nearly fell off the bedside table. I had 47 unread texts from Tara. They started with, "What did you do? Delete that comment now," and ended with, "You're a monster. I'm coming to the hospital to finish this." I didn't reply. Instead, I called the nurses' station and told them I was going through a volatile separation and I wanted a strict no-visitors order placed on my room. 10 minutes later, I called my brother, Rave. He's a high-stakes divorce attorney who treats litigation like a blood sport. When I told him the situation and sent the screenshots, there was a long, heavy silence on the other end. Rave eventually said, "Holy SHT. Okay, don't say a word to her. I'm filing the separation paperwork by noon and freezing the joint emergency fund before she realizes what hit her." By 2 p.m., the fallout had moved from social media to reality. My phone rang, and the caller ID showed Pinnacle Accounting. It was Mr. Fitzgerald. His voice was trembling with a mix of fury and professional embarrassment. He said, "Mr. Thompson, I am calling to personally apologize for the behavior of my employees. Using company property for personal celebrations, accessing restricted executive areas without authorization, and misappropriating client-tier liquor is a violation of every contract they signed." He informed me that both Tara and Derek had been terminated for cause, effective immediately. He even mentioned that Dottie was beyond mortified and was currently going through Tara's old expense reports with a magnifying glass. While I was still reeling from the news, I did one more bit of digging. Derek's LinkedIn profile showed he was engaged to a woman named Bethany. I found her on Facebook within minutes. Her profile picture was still her and Derek, smiling at their engagement party. I sent her a message. "Hi Bethany, you don't know me, but my wife just posted our divorce announcement while I was in surgery. She was with your fiancé. Thought you should see the freedom they were celebrating." I attached the screenshots. An hour later, Bethany replied, "Thank you. The wedding is off. Also, Derek stuff is currently in garbage bags on the lawn if Tara needs a roommate." Day 3 in the hospital brought the entitlement exhibition. Tara's mother, Darlene, managed to bypass security by claiming she was my biological mother. She marched into my room while I was still hooked up to N4 and started finger-wagging me. Darlene screamed, "How dare you? My daughter made one mistake and you destroyed her entire career. She was emotional. You've been neglecting her for years with your long hours." I looked at her, completely deadpan, and reminded her that I work a standard 9 to 5 and spend my weekends volunteering at an animal shelter. I told her she wasn't emotional, Darlene. She was drinking stolen whiskey while I was being cut open. She got herself fired. Darlene actually tried to grab my phone, screaming that I had to call Mr. Fitzgerald and tell him it was all a misunderstanding. Security had to physically drag her out of the ward. 2 hours later, Tara and Derek actually showed up together. They were lurking in the hallway until a nurse let them in, thinking they were there to apologize. Tara looked like she hadn't slept, her eyes red and puffy, but she wasn't sad. She was livid. She stood at the foot of my bed and said, "You need to fix this. Tell the firm we weren't doing anything wrong." It was after hours. I pointed out that 9:47 p.m. was before her 10 p.m. deadline. Derek stepped forward, looking pathetic in a wrinkled shirt, and said, "Dude, come on. We're talking about our lives here. My fiancé kicked me out. I have nowhere to go." I couldn't help it, I laughed. It hurt my stitches, but it was worth it. I said, "You guys wanted freedom, right? Well, now you're free from your jobs, free from your partners, and free from any sense of dignity. Congratulations." Tara stamped her foot like a child and yelled, "We have no income. The apartment requires proof of employment. We're going to be homeless because of your pettiness." Just then, Rave walked in carrying a stack of papers and 2 coffees. He didn't even look at them as he handed me a cup. He looked at Tara and said, "Oh, good. You saved me a trip. You've been served." And Derek, Mr. Fitzgerald, asked me to pass this along. He handed Derek an envelope. It wasn't a recommendation, it was a formal bill for $2,847 for misappropriated company resources, including the whiskey and the cleaning fees for the executive terrace. They both left the room screaming, threatening to sue me for emotional distress and slander. By the time I was discharged a week later, the story had grown legs. Tara had tried to pivot on Facebook, posting a long, rambling sob story about being trapped in a narcissistic marriage and how her one moment of joy was used to ruin her life. She claimed I was financially abusing her because I moved the emergency fund, money I had earned entirely from a small inheritance, into a solo account. She tried to frame herself as the victim of a calculated smear campaign. But the internet is a cruel mistress. Someone from the firm had leaked the security footage of them stumble walking out of the executive lounge with the bottle of Macallan. The support she expected from her friends evaporated instantly. A month into the divorce proceedings, Rave called me with an update. Tara had tried to claim half of my future earnings, arguing that she had sacrificed her career for our marriage. Rave just laughed and sent her lawyer the termination letter from Pinnacle, which explicitly stated she was fired for gross misconduct and theft. Her lawyer apparently went silent after that. Derek had moved into a studio apartment above a noisy garage, and according to the grapevine, he and Tara were already fighting constantly. Turns out, a relationship built on the adrenaline of an affair doesn't hold up well when you're both unemployed and sharing a space that smells like exhaust fumes. I recently got a text from an unknown number. It was Bethany, Derek's ex-fiancée. She told me she'd sold her engagement ring and used the money for a solo trip to Bali. She thanked me again, saying ID saved her from a lifetime of being second place to whatever coworker Derek decided to connect with next. I'm still doing physical therapy for the surgery complications, but every time I feel a twinge of pain in my abdomen, I just think about that Instagram post. I think about the word congratulations. It was the most honest thing Eve ever said to her. She wanted to be free from the dead weight, and I was more than happy to oblige. I lost an appendix and a cheating wife in the same night, and honestly, Eve never felt lighter. The final blow came last week. Tara called me from a burner phone, crying. She said she was working as a temp at a small tax firm, making a third of what she used to. She asked if we could just talk and maybe find a way to be civil. I told her that I was being very civil. I hadn't even posted the security footage myself. I told her, Tara, you told the world you were living your best life. I'm just trying to make sure you have the privacy to enjoy it. I hung up and blocked the number. My house is quiet now, my bank account is secure, and for the first time in years, I don't have to wonder if a critical deadline is actually a rooftop bar. I'm not just recovered, I'm brand new.